Ambulance. Yeah, I need an ambulance. No, we're on a farm. He's lost blood, a lot of blood. Guilt reading, V94RC88. No, there's nobody with him now. I just found him. Dad?
Hi, that was the trailer for Calf, written and directed by Jamie O'Rourke. A brilliant short of 180 very great shorts longlisted for the upcoming Oscars. I'm Dearbhla Walsh. I'm a director and a producer. Probably best known at the moment for Bad Sisters, which I'm just going to plug here and say the second series is on Apple TV Plus now. The and here working in LA at the moment on a new drama for Apple. I'm joined by the stars of the film, Isabel Connolly and Kate Niconani, and producer Ronan and director and writer Jamie. The film is actually set in Limerick and, well, shot in Limerick. And I wonder, Jamie, could you maybe set up the film for us? Tell us a little about it without any spoilers.
Absolutely. So the film opens and we see Koch, played by the brilliant Isabel Connolly, goes out on her family farm and discovers her father is in a near fatal farm accident. She runs inside, and when she goes inside, as we would expect her to want to get some help. But instead of doing that, she not only doesn't tell anyone, she stops anyone from going out over the preceding runtime of the film. And then at the end, we discover why.
Well, this film I'm just a massive fan of, and there is an extraordinary tension right from the beginning. And Jamie, I'm desperate to ask you a little about the style and tone of it. But first, Isabel, meeting your character and the watching it for the first time and wondering what on earth was going on with your character, which, bit by bit makes, and certainly by the final scene makes sense to us. Can I ask you, what drew you to this film?
Yeah, I think when I first read it, I always think when I'm reading a short, it's so rare to get such a well-rounded and full story in such a short amount of pages because it's obviously only 15 pages or so you get to do. But I felt like when I had finished the script, I knew all these characters and I understood Koch's motivation, and I really, as kind of just a reader, the mystery behind it, or I guess trying to understand why she's doing these things is like the main tension throughout, because you're like, you don't understand her motivations, and I think that like really adds to the payoff at the end when you finally do understand. But yeah, I think like she just seemed like a really well-rounded character, and also I think the fact that there's limited dialogue always is kind of a challenge for an actor, because you really have to rely on I guess getting into character and using your eyes and your expression to get the message across, which I think always entices me to a role. So yeah.
Yeah, I always think it's interesting when an actor gets a script when there isn't much dialogue. And I mean, I'm always busy telling people, characters and people rarely say what they mean. So
Mm-hmm.
everything is subtext. And obviously the clue is in the title, Calf, and
Mm-hmm.
you're the daughter. And Kate, I don't mean to call you a cow, but definitely being the mother here. Your character is kind of almost a sleeper character. The power of her sneaks up on you, and I didn't mean to be. My intention wasn't being facetious or self-serving and mentioning Bad Sisters at the beginning, because there is a parallel in the themes, but the tones are totally different. So tell me a little about what attracted you to this role and how you prepared for it.
It was interesting. I was looking for an email from Jamie yesterday in preparing for the Zoom because, as I said to him, I'm not technical at all. But I found the email that I had sent to my agent about the script. And as you know, often you get a script and you go, okay, what's my motivation as an actor to want to do this? And with this, it was just like, oh my God. It was like a stab in the gut. And what's so interesting, I was really drawn to, as Isabel said, the how quiet it is. Because I think historically in Ireland, I think we're really good writers, but I think that has brought us to a place where sometimes things can tend to be overwritten. And I think it's really fascinating when you get a script where so much is unsaid and then it has to unravel. And you've got this complete, with this film, you've got this complete evolution where it starts with, I don't know if it's Rice Krispies or whatever it is on the table. And at the end of it, it's just gone complete full circle with, as Isabel was saying, so little said. But in the journey of the characters, that kind of, I mean, where we are in the end with the mother and the daughter, I think it's a beautiful reversal of roles.
It's really interesting to hear about how you research a character like that. And also it's a film that as you're watching it, you get lost in and you're wondering, you know, as you say, Isabel, about the mystery. And then the ending is such a punch in the gut that all the questions and all those thoughts come to you like a tsunami in that final scene and when the credits roll. Jamie, why was this such an important story for you to tell?
In 2018, I worked on this documentary, and it was primarily made up of 9 interviews with women who at one point in their life had fled to a domestic abuse shelter. And they were recounting their experience to camera, and obviously very harrowing experiences. And it actually kind of brings me back to what you were all talking about there, which is, you know, I guess the relationship between Koch and Anya in the film. It was kind of representing those two worlds, is, you know, that old Ireland that used to keep things behind closed doors, and this more, I guess, this world that we're used to now, where we kind of really, I mean, the statistics haven't changed all that much, but we definitely are more open about talking about these things, I think. So very much kind of speaking to that, I guess.
And Ronan, there's a real buzz at the moment around the Irish film, Small Things Like These, which, you know, it's kind of similar in the world of moral horror, that we're very good at in Ireland and in telling those stories. But they're not easy to draw an audience to. And if they're not easy to draw an audience to, they're very difficult to get the money. Tell me, in terms of making this film, from the hard work of the producer trying to get the money, the time, the place, the cast together, how big a challenge was that for you?
Well, I think the first challenge was that the film was made under COVID, and I think a lot of credit has to be given to Jamie and the actors as well, because it was their first time kind of meeting. And when you see the powerful scene at the end, that wasn't rehearsed like days upon days upon days. It was done kind of more or less there on the spot. Like that was the first time in the location. Obviously, you get to a stage where, you know, you're doing a short and, you know, yourself, Dearbhla, like there's no money. And I guess the first thing for me is that I'd seen Jamie's first film, Scrap, and I'd never seen anything like that kind of on the Irish festival circuit. And it was just, I remember watching it down in Kerry, and I was really, really excited about it. You know, it was really cool. And then just kind of by luck, he emailed me and I said, look, I'm never doing a short again. And I read the script. And I remember I spoke to my business partner about it, and I spoke to my partner Adele about it, and they were going, you have to do it. This is just a great script. So we went into Virgin pitching the idea, but by hook or by crook, we got the funding, and then by hook or by crook, then we delivered. And I think the biggest thing for me is that most incredible thing is about like how the story has traveled. There's just something kind of universal about it that people just want to come up to the end and just talk to you.
You mentioned a few things there, Ronan, which I think are fascinating. COVID. When we were in COVID, we never thought the world would be the same again. And now that you mention it, Ronan, I go, COVID, what's that thing they call COVID? Isabel and Kate, I had no idea you made this during COVID. Some people used to say during COVID, we'll always be able to tell a film made in COVID. And absolutely, there is there's no signs in this film that it was made under any constraining conditions. Can you talk me through that final scene and how you approached, what was on the page when you started it?
For me, I always just thought that scene was kind of Koch being like, it's okay, I've taken care of you. Like, in a way, it's her confession, and the mom is saying, sort of being like, I know it was you, and I like, I understand, like a moment of understanding between them. It was all I kind of read that as, and just a thing of, we're going to be okay, we're going to look after each other like we always do, and that's kind of what this was.
Interesting. Kate, fascinating, because this is of course where we finally understand you bring us on a roller coaster of questions, thoughts.
There's such an unmasking of who she herself has been over the last, whatever it is, 20 years or whatever, that she's been with this person. So there's I think there's like a cascade of revelations for Anya in that scene. And probably one of the hardest ones is that the role reversal has happened, that her daughter is looking after her because she hasn't been able to do that. And is looking after them, is responsible for both of them. And obviously the mother, Anya, loves Coates and has always given her love and protection in the only way that she can. But this role reversal, I think, is a really interesting one that we see a lot, in these sort of families.
I mean, utterly fascinating. And the word that, in terms of the storytelling, it's like judgment. And watching that scene when you slowly, you realize what Koch's motivation has been. And I still hadn't gone to the place of the reveal of the mother's character, and just such delicate and powerful storytelling, Jamie, in just the disrobing, the undressing my mother. I mean, I lost my mother to cancer, and that kind of role reversal of when you're bathing, somebody, when you are performing something with a person who looked and loved and nurtured after you so much. So the delicacy of that, and the undressing of her, and then the reveal. But just there's a million detailed choices there, and just, did you know exactly how you wanted to play with it? How much did Jamie and you talk about the elasticity, the emotional elasticity within that scene? And Kate, just many different takes, or were you very clear about?
We talked about it a good bit beforehand, and I feel like we were very clear. I feel like we were very clear in our intentions because the three of us had discussed it a lot. So, but I like what you're saying about about Anya not being sure where she was going to go, because she did love her husband.
That's one thing we talked about as well, Kate, and that Isabel wasn't privy to, was that I mentioned to you that when you were out with Michael, that you did know. And I think, and for me, all of that around at that time is, it's about that, it's this guilt, this strange guilt about, like, that I think is one thing that really bears a lot of thinking about, is you can't really, this idea that kids are kept in a household, as, where does that stop and where does it begin? Because if let's say Anya had left, then Sean, Koch's brother, wouldn't have been born. These are the complexities and the gray areas in all of this are just huge. There is no guilt, there is no blame, and often that's one thing that I do end up talking to people about a lot is whether they, what's your intention? Do you want to do? Should we be talking about whether Koch's action or inaction is right or wrong? Or it's not really about right or wrong here. It's not. It's not about any of that. It's about this crazy mix of guilt and role reversals there between Koch and Anya. But for me, I kind of see them together in that frame at the end, and like I know it's hard to dig down and find, but there's those threads of hope because about going forward. And I guess the scars are kind of literal and figurative, aren't they? They don't, just because this situation has come to an end doesn't mean that those scars or that all of that goes away. It's about how does this family go forward, and it's those two people together, Koch and Anya. So I think that was the thing that I wanted to leave with at the end of the film, was that they were together there.
Well, I mean, you so do that, and as I say, we're still, the power of thinking about the themes of the film and those characters afterwards, and I suppose the shadow and the presence of Dad is there throughout the film, even though he disappears very quickly. And there's some of this that, for those of you watching at the moment, don't quite spoil the film, because I've watched the film many times, and that scene, Kate, that you talked about when you go out to the farm and find him, when you watch it a second and third time and the story, you still see and feel the love. And it's even, the complexity of how our hearts rule our heads often, but also realizing that there is a control, there's been a coercive control, there has been an abuse. And so
I think in life as well, we can tend, not everyone, but me, for instance, I tend to be very black and white. This person's bad, this person's good, we shouldn't accept this, we should accept this, we should fight for this. But I think for me, that was really interesting with the character, to be able to go, okay, everything is wrong about this, and yet, that makes it so much more difficult. And that is the muddiness of real life. That is the muddiness that, often when you look at women who live in these situations and you find out afterwards, you go, what? But that doesn't make any sense. She was always like this, and she was strong, and she was feisty, and she was, it doesn't make sense. That's kind of the point of it. And even though it is something that we talk about so much more openly now, and we're more aware of, as Jamie said at the beginning, the stats don't account for that, and the stats are actually worse. And I think it's really interesting the time at which this is coming out as well. Like if you look at femicide being at an all-time high, and even the case of Giselle Pellico in France, like all of these things, it's like a confluence of awareness and just even rising stats on these issues. I think it's good timing.
I think watching it this time around, because I saw this film over a year ago, but watching it this time around, that the French case was very much in my mind, because when I read about all the perpetrators of the crime, in that case, almost 100% of them, but certainly a high percentage, all experienced abuse themselves.
All of the statistics that back in 2018 that I couldn't really actually believe are available on womensaid.ie, and I would encourage anybody to go on that, because when you discover that 1 in 4 Irish women at one point in their life will suffer some form of abuse, whether that's coercive, mental, emotional, or physical, from a former or current partner, like that's 25%. Those statistics, we talk about the open door thing, that we don't keep things behind closed doors, but those statistics are actually getting worse, and it's kind of hard to fathom in modern society, but it's the truth. And I think familiarizing yourself with those, and they don't change, they vary slightly from country to country. There was a European-wide study done on it, that was across all European countries, and they barely vary from country to country, and it's a huge. So when we talk about this, everybody knows somebody. You know, 1 in 4 women. If you know more than 4 women, this, you know what I mean. This is very much the case in Ireland and every country.
That is extraordinary. That you know, in our group of friends, and I remember just hearing that statistic on the news recently. And you look around, you go, one of my friends, you know, you know, there is an epidemic of domestic abuse. I mean, you know, we talk about all sorts of epidemics. It is real. It's there. I really could, you know, talk about this film, but much more importantly, for those of you watching, if you haven't already watched, please watch now. If you have watched and have listened to this, maybe, you know, it helps to watch again. But more importantly, it's the weekend before one of the most important elections in the world here in America. And so when you're watching this, the world will have gone one way or the other. But what we do know is the world is changing whichever way it goes, and people's angers, people's frustrations, and to borrow a phrase that everybody is using here is get out and vote. So I ask all of you watching this at the moment to please exercise your vote. There are 180, I know, brilliant hopefuls in this long list for Oscars. I know I'm prejudiced, but I'm going to wear it very firmly on my sleeve. I think this is an incredibly important story to be told, quite brilliantly told by our cast, you know, Kate and Isabel, by our producer Ronan, all the incredible crew members that never get to be in this limelight, but most importantly under the sensitive and sensitive brilliance of Jamie O'Rourke, who I think is a really important voice that we need to hear and see more of his work. So please vote for CAF. Please tell your peers to get out there and vote for CAF, because more people need to see this film. More people will see it if we get it into the final 15 for the Oscars. And then you watching this will get to meet Jamie in person and his team, and ask all those questions that people have been asking Ronan to ask the director. So here from Kildare, from Spiddle, from Dublin, from Limerick, and from LA, thank you for being with us, bearing with us, and thank you, Jamie, Isabel, Kate, and Ronan.
Cheers.
Very, very
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.